Hey guys, Aston the Running Guy here, welcome back. Today I'm going to be talking about the shoes I wear. I've had a few questions, so I'll run through that. But before I do that, I'll talk about the main reasons. Obviously there's a lot of things that make up a shoe. The outsole, the midsole, the uppers, all the woven materials. But the main things I look at when I'm choosing a shoe is the weight and the offset, so the heel to toe offset. That being the height of the heel compared to the toes. So a 4mm offset will actually have the heel 4mm higher than where the toes are. 8mm offset, same deal, 8mm difference between the heel height and the toe height. A lot of zero drops obviously means that the heel is the same height as the toes, a zero drop. Okay, so the shoe I wear mainly has a 4mm offset. So I find that gives me a good road feel. It feels nice responsiveness. I don't want to go down to the zero drop. I find over the years I've had issues with Achilles and calves, and generally when you start to run in that barefoot manner with that zero drop, it tends to load up those areas, that activates those parts of the legs more. It works for some. For me, I'll stick with a 4mm offset. So that's what the offset is. The other thing is weight. Obviously, for a fast road run, weight for me is important. I want to try to keep that weight down, that fast road feel, that fast leg turnover. Always feels a lot nicer when you have a lightweight shoe on it. Generally, the more stack height, which I'll talk about soon, the more offset and the more weight is going to be put onto that shoe, which isn't a problem when you're out there for longer. You tend to be moving slower over 50 k's or ultramarathons, whatever it might be. So the shoe that I actually, the brand I use is the Saucony. Apologies for the Americans, it's an American brand, they pronounce it Saucony. But for my viewers and for most people watching, we know it as Saucony. I don't receive any kickbacks, discounts, anything from them. It's just basically I'm just talking about the shoe that I actually wear. I found the Saucony works really well for me. Like I said, a lot of their shoes have that 4mm offset. I'll have the choice of picking that 4mm offset. Quite clearly marked 4, 8 and 12 is generally the way Saucony build their shoes with those offsets. I also am a neutral runner, so a lot of the shoes that I'll be talking about is for a neutral landing, so I don't pronate, roll inwards too much. So this is a neutral type running shoes that I'll be wearing. Obviously all manufacturers of shoes will offer their neutral or ones for pronation. So it just depends on how much stability you actually need and how much you're actually rolling, but I find the neutral shoes work quite well for me. Alright, so the first shoe I'll talk about, I wear, basically rotate 3 different types of Saucony road shoes, depending on what sort of training I'm doing or racing and how long I'm out there for. So I'll start with their shoe that I really love. It's their featherweight, it's called their Type A8 shoe, and it weighs in, I wear the 9.5 or 10, so these weights are basically off that size that I'm talking about 165 grams when they're new out of the box. It's for the really fast tempo type races, 5, 10k. It has an offset of 17 and 13, so a 4mm offset. Like I said, a lot of shoes I wear a 4mm offset. It just depends on how much stack height they actually have in the shoe. So 17mm in the heel, 4mm in the 13mm, sorry, in the toe. So that's a 4mm difference between the heel and toe. So a 4mm offset. Because it has that stack height of only 17mm and 13mm, as you'll see, I'll talk in the other shoes, they actually have more stack height, which means more rubber underneath your foot. Generally, the lighter shoes, when you actually want more road feel and you're going quicker, you're not going to be out there for as long, so you don't need the shoe to absorb as much of that road impact, that ground force. They'll generally have a lower stack height, so 17 and 13, 165 gram. I love the shoe. Every time I wear it, I tend to PB. So yeah, I really love that shoe. So that's the Type A8. Very fast, very responsive, and it just feels great. So I love this shoe. Okay, so the next shoe I wear is the old Kimber, the old trusty Kimber. Very favourite shoe for many years for me and lots of other runners. So this is a Kimber 10 model. Again, it has a 4mm offset. This having a little bit more rubber under it instead of 17-13. This one actually has a 25-21, so 25 in the heel, 21 in the toes. Still a 4 mil difference, but that extra rubber underneath the foot actually absorbs a little bit more of that road ground impact force, and it gives you a little bit more cushioning. So you'll see, you'll start to understand that the more stack height, the more rubber you have under your foot, the more cushioning you're going to get, the longer you can run in that shoe, because you're not going to be out there for as long, so you're not too worried about how much ground impact force your muscle belly actually has to absorb. So obviously the more the shoe can actually absorb, the less your muscle belly has to, and vice versa. So the Saucony Kimber 10, it's basically a lightweight trainer. I also wear it in marathons. I find it's still quick enough and responsive enough to run fast in, and it just gives me that extra cushioning towards the end of that marathon when you're out there for a lot longer. So the Kimber 10 I really love. Okay, the next shoe, before I move on, I just realised I didn't quote the weight on that Kimber, so that's about 220 grams again for that size 10. So a pretty good weight for a trainer and a racer. That's why it crosses over into both those ones. So the next one is the Ride 10, this one here. The difference between this is an 8mm offset. So yeah, 8mm obviously difference, height difference. I still don't mind this one. It actually has a lot more rubber in it. So we go from 29 to 21, so that's the 8mm difference. So 29mm stack height is actually more rubber underneath the foot, a lot more cushioning, and it's going to hold up for those longer runs. It still feels really light. I mean, this one weighs in at 280 grams. But it still feels great over those long runs. So some trainers tend to be up over 300 grams, but this one is again a lot of cushioning, the 29, but also not too heavy. So it feels really good towards those long runs. If you're out there for 2.5 hours, whatever it may be, an hour and a half, whatever it might be, it still feels good towards the end of those runs. So that's the Ride, and again, it's a neutral top shoe. If you need stability, they use the Guide. For a little bit more of that pronation control. So this is Ride, and I love it. I've been wearing it again for years as each model comes out. Okay, moving on over to the trail shoes. So I do a lot of racing and road and trail. I'm always switching between one or the other. I think it's great variety for the body, and it's great variety for the mind, and I love running trails, I love running roads, so I'm always switching between one and the other. So this is Saucony Peregrine. Again, I've been wearing this one for many years. It's weighs in at 320 grams. Again, it only has a 4mm offset. It's very similar to the Kimber. Well, it's exactly the same as far as the stack height goes, 25-21. So it still gives you that cushioning underneath the trail. Obviously, you've got the knobblies of the tread as well, so that absorbs a lot of the trail as well. But at 320 grams, it doesn't feel that heavy. It still feels fairly fast, very responsive. It has a lot of that protection for when you hit the rocks and the roots or whatever it might be. It has a bit of waterproofing and stuff in there, fast drying type gear on it. So again, I really love the feel of that. Towards the end of those long trail runs, it actually still feels very good. So I can't move off the Peregrine yet. 4mm offset, 25-21. Very same as Kimber, and it just does everything I need it to do. So the Peregrine's been great. Okay, so moving on to the last trailer shoe. This shoe has just been introduced by Saucony a couple of months ago. It's called the ISO Switchback. Again, it's a 4mm offset, and it weighs in at 280 grams. So it's not super light for what I consider a trail racing shoe, but it still feels very fast, very responsive. It actually has a lower stack height, so 21-17, so that's why you actually feel the road a little bit more, or the trailer a little bit more. It has this new tensioning system. It's called the BOA tensioning system. Basically just this ratchet system. You just turn to tension it, and it tends to evenly, it tensions evenly right around the foot. And I don't have any issues with having to retension it during the run, so it feels fantastic. Just to release, it's just a matter of pop it out, the whole thing releases, push back in again, turn and twist. So that's the ISO Switchback. Really loving the feel of it, thinking about using it for the up and coming UTA 50. Instead of the Peregrine, or more than likely I will, just because it has that fast race feel about it. But yeah, so that's 21-17 4mm again offset, and 280 grams. So you can see there, as I mentioned before, I use a lot of that 4mm offset because it just for me it's the right balance between not loading up my calves and Achilles too much, which have been a problem over the decades. So but it still gives me that road feel. So they're the shoes I wear. Hopefully you got something out of that as far as learning a little bit more about offsets and stack heights. And if you like this video, please like, share. If you haven't subscribed, subscribe now. Follow the links over to my website where you can make inquiries about hiring me as a coach, getting a program written out, or joining the squad membership. Thanks guys, bye for now.